Hey ladies, just wanted to touch base with y'all today. And so I recently talked to a girlfriend and she asked me a question about co-visioning and career balance with your marriage and making time for your spouse and making time for yourself and what have you, all the things of that nature. And so she was like, when you go do a video about that? And I was like, good question. I didn't think to do a video about that yet because I guess I'm not an expert on that balance. But one thing I know is that my husband and I have truly had a transition, if you will, with this. I think that co-visioning with your spouse is very important, right? Because your futures are intertwined and you want to support what they're doing. You definitely want them to support what you're doing. But I think sometimes in the process, we can lose our focus on each other and it's more focused on career, or lose our focus on career, more focused on each other. And so I started thinking about how my husband and I have been dealing or trying to cope with that situation. And the reality is that we haven't exactly got it figured out. But we've had some good spurts and some suggestive tools that could help in the process. So my husband, as I've told you all before, is a trainer, and while he was doing his training and his boot camps, he also was still teaching full-time as an instructor for a junior high school. So the balance was that there was no balance for 2 years because he didn't want to make some sporadic transition. No shades to the people who can do that, but for our family, he wanted to make sure that we had some sort of strategic approach. So he would get up at 3 a.m. and go run camps at 4:45 in the morning. Then he'd come home and shower, and then he'd leave to go to his full-time job, which was at least 40 minutes away. And then he'd teach all day from, I guess, 8 till around 4. He'd try to finish up the day and make it back home for his evening camps, and that was exhausting. He didn't have very much left to give, and he didn't have very much time. So I really wanted to support him because I want him to be able to live his dream. I mean, you went to school for this, it gives you joy, and they say that if you find something that you love, you're not working a day in your life. So I didn't want my husband to have to work a day in his life while he was working, making money, right? And so at the same time, I was traveling quite a bit, and then I got laid off, and so there was a lot of transition. And so I can't say that there's this awesome balance, but I think it has to get down to the heart of what is the end goal. And the end goal is that you want your spouse to know that you support them, 1. 2, you want to make sure that you all's relationship continues to grow as you're fighting for your careers to grow and or change. And you want there to be, number 3, quality, even if there can't be quantity. And so you have to kind of get creative, but sometimes in that creativity, that also means scheduling. And I know sometimes that is an issue because people are like, well, we didn't used to have to schedule our time together, and so now I'm just some note on your tablet as a checklist. It's not a note in a checklist, and sometimes I know how I can feel that way. I felt that way. But if the end goal is for us to have time together, let's make that time something that we can look forward to, right? So that might mean that your week is swamped, but you know that you're going to hang out together on Saturday, maybe from this time to this time. For a long time, all I got was 30 minutes a day. He wouldn't get home until 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then he'd have to try to finish up the stuff for camps. And so my designated time was 9 to 9:30 because he had to be asleep, if you will, by 9:45, which he was exhausted, so there's no issue, so that he could get up and do it all again the next morning. We did that for 2 years. So I'm not saying it's easy. What I'm saying is it can be done. Now, we had our share of arguments in the process. We had our share of not figuring out what works. But I knew for sure that even if it was only 30 minutes a day, I don't even know where he had time for himself. But listen, Linda, I needed my time. So he got me my 30 minutes. I looked forward to that time. I let him do what he had to do in between. We did get into some tiffs sometimes because as soon as he got from camp, he'd want to share with me, and he's so excited. But I needed him to stay on schedule so that we could have our time. Was it very regimented? Yes. Was it exhausting for him? Because he was like, well, with such a schedule and everything is by the hours, you can make sure it's getting done, or by the 15-minute increments, it gets in the way of your leisure time, right? But sometimes when you're in the process of trying to get to a bigger goal, which was for him to be independent and live his dream and leave his other full-time so this could be his full-time job, you have to make sacrifices. And the things that we tend to sacrifice sometimes unintentionally are each other. And that's not healthy, because at the end of the day, if you're shooting for your career and you're driving for that and you have support, but then you've ruined the relationship, that when you finally get to that career, you don't have the support anymore, was it worth it, right? And so we wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be us at the end. So girlfriend, I don't have all the answers. We're still trying to figure this out. Whoop, he finally got to go full time. And so now that's a whole nother battle of how do we schedule us in and make time when you have more time, because it seems that when we have more time, we find ways to waste it also, right? But how can you make quality out of the time that you all do have, and how can you give each other something to look forward to, even if that means that it has to be a little bit orchestrated? But I think sometimes where we get a problem is that we make a schedule, we write it in. My husband got to the point where he was sending me invites, okay? I was legitimately on his schedule. But then how do we make sure that that time is used for that and not become the buffer time that's just kind of spare, where, hey, if it happens, great. If it don't, well, they'll understand, because we give each other a lot of grace and we have this expectation of like, well, you love me, like, just understand, just be there, just, you know, be okay with it getting pushed off. But we don't want to ever give the message that we're not as important, or your spouse is not as important as the other things on the to-do list that don't get erased, that are must-dos. Make each other a must-do. And if that means that sexy time has to be scheduled, it's not as cool, but hey, do we want to have sexy time? And, you know, dinners have to be regimented, but hey, when we were dating, we scheduled it sometimes. Every now and then we got pop-ups, but we made sure, you want to go on a date, I'll be there at this time, meet me at this time, and we made sure that that happened. So let's not make marriage be an exception. What's most important is that your spouse knows that you love him, that he is a priority, that you want to find a way to make it work, and vice versa. You have to know that that's something that he wants to make work. He's going to figure out how to work the schedule, and that you're here for the long haul. We're going to figure this out no matter how long it takes. We just have to both be in it, figure it out together. That's all I got. So ladies, if you have other things that you've done, tools that have worked, things that you're proud of that you had to work through, share, comment below, because we know that any new approach could be helpful, and we haven't thought of it all, but we want to hear from you. Until next time, it's your girl Shaylee Co. See you ladies. Keep it wifey.